Today, as we draw closer to the three-day Paschal event, we hear a long, complex Gospel story from which the Church selects for this Sunday only one thread. This story is unique to the Gospel of John. John places it close to the end of Jesus' public ministry, preparing us to hear of Jesus' suffering, death and resurrection. The story begins apparently simply. The narrator tells us twice that a man called Lazarus was ill. He lets us know that Lazarus' sisters are Martha and Mary, and that they all live in Bethany. Later in the story, we are told explicitly that Bethany is only 2 miles away from Jerusalem. This is important for the Gospel of John, for explaining how Jesus' arrest and execution came about. Before that, however, we are confronted with the puzzle that although he has been told that his friend Lazarus is ill, Jesus delays for 2 days before going to him. Jesus comments that Lazarus' illness leads not to death, but to God's glory and the glorification of the Son of God. As they travel to Bethany, Jesus explains to his disciples that he knows already that Lazarus has died, but that what they will experience there will lead the disciples truly to believe. Jesus seems to contradict himself, saying first that Lazarus' illness will not lead to death, yet then declaring bluntly that Lazarus has died. This paradox hints to us that while Jesus seems to be speaking in a matter-of-fact way, he is really expressing a deeply theological meaning. When Jesus arrives at Bethany, we are told that Lazarus has already been buried for 4 days. While Jewish people are going out to Bethany to console Martha and Mary, the story focuses on a conversation between Jesus and Martha, during which Martha will be called to faith in Jesus. Martha's first comments look back to what might have been had Jesus come earlier, and then they look forward to what God might do if Jesus only asks. This is very realistic for a person grieving a sudden death of someone close to them. However, as in the other conversations Jesus had with people in previous stories, Jesus responds to Martha at another level, speaking to lead her to full faith. First, Jesus reminds Martha of her Jewish faith, that her brother would rise again, with which Martha agrees. Then, Jesus makes an extraordinary revelation to Martha, saying, "I am the resurrection and the life." Jesus has never said this before in this Gospel. It is a brand new statement that takes Martha's hope in the resurrection beyond anything that she had envisaged. When Jesus says he is the resurrection and the life, he means that he is the one through whom these gifts beyond price are made available to us. Jesus is the personal presence of God among us, guaranteeing it, making it possible. Martha agrees, but confirms it by saying that she believes that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. This is true, but she does not affirm the new revelation of Jesus' theological identity that he has just made to her. It is as though she hasn't heard it. Martha is still on the journey to full faith. The next scene is one of the most dramatic in the New Testament Gospels. Against a background of people murmuring about why Jesus did not prevent Lazarus's death, Jesus, weeping and emotionally very disturbed, goes to the tomb. Despite Martha's protest that the tomb will smell badly, Jesus commands that the stone closing off the tomb be removed. We hear Jesus pray to his Father with thanks and confidence, saying that he speaks aloud so that those witnessing the event may believe that it is God who sent Jesus among us. Jesus then commands Lazarus to come out of the tomb. The storyteller depicts for our imagination Lazarus coming out of the tomb as a resuscitated corpse, still wrapped in the grave clothes, including the cloth that wrapped his face. Jesus instructs that they unbind him and let him go. The story today concludes with the statement that many of the Jews who had witnessed what Jesus did believed in him. These people come to full faith in Jesus, but in the very next section of the Gospel, we hear that the Jewish leaders, only a short distance away in Jerusalem, see this rapid movement to faith in Jesus as a threat to the political and religious stability of their nation. Therefore, they decide that Jesus must die. John 11:46-53. This is likely to have contributed to Jesus' distress at the tomb. To raise Lazarus from the dead was to sign his own death warrant. To restore Lazarus to his sisters and to show the power of God to his disciples and others, Jesus had to pay with his own life. The final deep meaning of this story is not revealed until the resurrection of Jesus. When Jesus' empty tomb is discovered, the linen cloths that wrapped Jesus' body are lying in the tomb, and the face cloth is folded up separately, in a place by itself. Seeing this, so different from the return to mortal life of Lazarus, the disciple whom Jesus loved believed that Jesus was risen from the tomb. In this way, Lazarus' illness did in fact lead beyond death to God's glory and the glorification of the Son of God.